Hey everyone, Rob from Southgate Media Group here. Before we get started with this podcast, we have a quick message. If this is your first time checking out the show, we love that you found us and we really hope you enjoy it. What we have to say is for the subscribers. If you enjoy our shows, would you please donate to help keep these going? We don't want to have to put traditional ads on these shows, but this does cost money. So we really do rely heavily on donations. To make a donation to the show, please go to our website, www.southgatemediagroup.com. Go to the page for the show, and in the upper right-hand corner is a donate button. It takes you right to PayPal, and you can donate whatever amount you want. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody. And now on with the show.
Welcome to World's Finest Weekly DC Comics Review. I am your Batman, Phil Parrish, and, well, that's it. You're stuck with me this week, because Tyler had a family emergency, so let's jump into it. And, as usual, every week, the beginning portion of this podcast is brought to you by Before the Bat, the Gotham podcast, where you can hear Tyler, me, and Kelly every week, because we usually start with the Bat books. And we will start with my personal favorite of the week, Grayson number 8. If you listen to this podcast, you should know Grayson is Dick Grayson, the original Robin, who became Nightwing and now is kind of a secret agent. And this one kind of, I don't know if we see the downfall of this organization, Spiral, that Dick Grayson's been working for. But it looks like him and his partner are out. The mysterious individual they were working for seems to have been killed. And a lot of the books this month were wrapping up their storylines because Convergence is next month. What's Convergence? Well, it's where a bunch of, any DC character you've known could pop up in this. Any reality, whatever. And I don't know if once the 2-month Convergence is over, if we're going to see some new characters or some older versions mixing with newer versions. But as it says in the end of this Grayson, the next issue of Grayson isn't until June 2015. So, but I really like it. If the last couple issues, it seemed like maybe Grayson was spinning their wheels, but now we actually got some movement forward. Maybe Dick Grayson and Helena Bertinelli are out of the Spiral organization. Maybe the Spiral organization is no more. So I give this one a big 5. And next up, I read Detective Comics number 40. Once again, this is also wrapping up a storyline. This is wrapping up the origin of the new Anarchy, who used to be Lonnie Machin, a teenage boy who, at the end of this issue, we see might still go on to be a version of Anarchy, because he gets one of Anarchy's masks, but there's also another version floating around. So I saw the last couple of issues of this Detective Comics storyline referred to as almost like a buddy comedy or a buddy adventure with Batman and Bullock, because Bullock and Batman, after a tumultuous beginning, were working together to stop Anarchy, because he basically used his mask to hypnotize a lot of the people in the city to riot. So no one could have, I guess, stopped him alone. But I love the art in this story. I really like the story, but I don't like how they change stuff in the New 52, especially with people's identities, the villains. So since we didn't get the original Anarchy, Lonnie Machin, I'll give this one a 4.5. Hey, that's still respectable. And next we have Batman Eternal, the weekly Batman series. Batman Eternal number 48. We see things are starting to come to a head, because we see they still haven't showing us who the mastermind is behind the grand scheme, but whoever he is, his forces are fighting Batman's allies, like Clayface is after Red Robin. We have Batgirl versus Joker's daughter. We have Bluebird and Mr. Freeze, and we have Red Hood versus Bane in a big metal exoskeleton. Oh, and Batwing's in here also. But, so yeah, we see a lot of them facing their enemies. We see a couple seconds of Batman as his plane crashes because Hush took over the controls, and Batman decides to break into a nearby airport and steal another jet. And then we see Stephanie Brown's spoiler. Not a well, maybe a spoiler, but Stephanie Brown, who is the spoiler. She gets kidnapped by her father, the villainous Clue Master. And at the end, we see that the mysterious mastermind behind the city's ills has ordered... He's giving Penguin back his freedom, but only if he kills James Gordon, who's also locked up in the prison. Not too bad. I'll give this a issue a 5. A 5. Sorry, not a 5. A 4. Because I just think we could have had a 5, but I think we needed more Batman in this story. You know, I buy a book with Batman in the title. I expect to see Batman on more than a page or two, but I guess that's the risk we run with these monthly books. And finally, for the Bat books, we had Harley Quinn number 15. It's kind of a continuation of last month, per usual. Harley's trying to figure out how to juggle everything in her life. Her job as a psychiatrist, and then her second job in the roller derby. And now she's playing anti-hero because she saved a couple people from a fire. She also quite painfully stopped the arsonist. So, like I said, I think he's going to be... she's going to be some kind of anti-hero. But then at the end of the issue, we see Poison Ivy show up. And I don't know what's going on with these two. If they're friends, if they're more than friends. But at the end of the issue, Poison Ivy gives Harley the idea to hire a bunch of... I don't know if the word would be a gang or a bunch of assistants. But so she puts it out on the internet that she's looking for multiple assistants. This issue was alright. A lot of times, though, it seems like there's a lot said and meanwhile nothing happens. So, for Harley Quinn 15, I give this one a 3 out of 5. Alright. Now, let's move on. The next portion of this podcast is brought to you by the Flash Arrow Power Hour podcast, which is hosted by me, Tyler, and some guy named Zach. The Flashpoint podcast and the Queen Consolidated podcast, and the Fast Talkers podcast. So, since we're talking Flash and Arrow, let's jump in. We had Green Arrow number 40 this week. And once again, because Convergence is coming our way, the storyline's wrapping up. We see Green Arrow with a new army behind him. Of course, Diggle and Felicity are there, but he's got Roy Harper, Arsenal, who he hasn't been too close with lately, Katana, and Miko, I believe, his half-sister, who he just discovered, Lex Luthor. Yes, that's right, Lex Luthor, who's now part of the Justice League. Cupid, who you'll remember from that episode of Arrow. And making his way through the shadows on the inside of the King building is Batman. But I know he has a lot of help this issue, but it seems like they tie up, which was a complicated storyline, pretty quickly. But Oliver Queen manages to take down King and save his city, and the end is like almost seems like an episode of Arrow, because Felicity tells Oliver he has to go and save his city. But I like the art, I like the story. Wish we could have got maybe another issue or two, but I'll give this one a solid 4. And next up in this section, we have Flash Season 0, number 6. For those of you who don't know, this is the digital first series that's based on the Flash TV show. But as Tyler and I have said before, I know I like the paper copy. I know he also likes the paper copy over digital. This is the startup of a storyline where, in the beginning, Barry's in training with his powers, seeing how fast he can swim, ends up creating a tidal wave on the beach. Kind of cute. Then he gets called. Then Joe calls Barry to a crime scene. He finds a mutilated body, almost looks like it's been chewed up. And back at Star Labs, Barry, Cisco, and Caitlin realize that the wounds were made by shark's teeth. And then they realize, through DNA and everything else, that there was a researcher, DeMarco, who was experimenting with shark DNA when the particle accelerator blew and somehow fused DeMarco with the shark DNA to make him like a walking killer shark. Yes, walking. He has legs. The end of the issue has the team staking out different sites where Killer Shark might go after his next victim. Unfortunately, Cisco's at the location where the shark hits, and he calls Barry, and on the last page, the last panel shows Barry arriving just in time to get in between the Killer Shark and Cisco. Not too bad. Like I said, it's only a first part. I don't know, some of these TV tie-ins leave me wanting more. Some just seem dry sometimes, so I'll give this one a 3.5. I recommend picking it up. I mean, like I said, if you don't want to wait or you don't want to make the trip to the store, you can buy all these, Flash Season 0 and Arrow Season 2.5. You can buy those online weeks before they come out in print, because they take 3 or 4 of the digital chapters and slap them in one comic book. All right. So we're getting down to it. I have 1, 2, 3 issues left. So, you know what that means. The last 3 books are brought to you by the Channel 52, the DC podcast with Tyler himself, Lilith Hellfire, and Charlie. This is the section where we review books that don't fit into any of the other categories. So, the first book was Green Lantern number 40. Once again, you're going to get sick of hearing me say this, but once again, they're tying up a storyline for Convergence next month. Nothing is going to be the same next month, so make sure you listen to me and Tyler for the next month and the month after, because we will be your guides through Convergence, because it will be confusing. But anyway, Green Lantern 40 opens up with Hal Jordan sneaking into the Green Lantern Corps, vault, and getting, I guess he's not taking his ring because he tells Kilowog the League, the Green Lantern Corps has a bad reputation because of his leadership, so he's going to leave, and hopefully all the blame will shift to him as a quote-unquote renegade. So he leaves his ring behind in his locker and uses this kind of gauntlet thing with a backpack that simulates his powers. And Kilowog says, well, you have to make it look good. So Hal Jordan spends most of this issue beating the snot out of Kilowog, which if you look at his face, it looks like he already has been beaten. But anyway, so the issue ends with the rest of the Corps coming in and Hal Jordan taking off into space. And after Convergence, who knows what's coming, because it's in the next box it says in 2 months, which I don't know, might be closer to 3, but it says in 2 months a bold new era begins. So I think we're going to get a Hal Jordan without the Corps for a while, which I don't like him taking the blame for what happened, but I've been waiting for years, probably 06, maybe 07. It's been a while, it seems like. I want to see Hal Jordan back on Earth and working solo, so looks like I'm getting my wish. All right, and then the next issue is the New 52 Futures End, number 44. This is another weekly series set 5 years in the future. And if you've been listening to the show, you've heard me and Tyler discussing this, how Brainiac has come to... Well, he basically captures New York City and attempts to put it in one of his bottles. And meanwhile, Batman and Mr. Terrific and the Atom are trying to shut down Brother Eye via rogue computer program that's been attempting to take over what it thinks is for humanity's own good. But we also see Batman Beyond Terry McGinnis in here. We see Superman stop Brainiac, put him on the ground until the Atom shows up with some of Brother Eye's defense drones, and they basically break down Brainiac. They save New York City, but from the foreshadowing we see at the end of the issue, it looks like they may have just traded one threat for a very more invasive threat, of the threat of Brother Eye. But this issue, it seems slow before. The action seems to be picking up a little more, so I'll give this one a 4 also. And that brings us finally, because I'm sure you're sick of hearing me ramble to myself, is Earth 2, number 32. This is the story of the Earth 2 heroes, the Jay Garrick Flash, the Alan Scott Green Lantern. We have another Kryptonian there. But in this we see everyone trying to hold off Darkseid and Apocalypse. We have Batman, who's Thomas Wayne, Bruce Wayne's father, because the Bruce Wayne Batman was killed here in the first issue. We see an Earth 2 version of Oliver Queen as the Red Arrow. We see Power Girl and the new Kryptonian Val trying to stop parademons. But what we also get in this issue is the origin, and they're linked together, of Dr. Fate and the Earth 2 Hawkgirl. They both received their powers in an Egyptian tomb years ago. Hawkgirl sprouts wings, and that's that. But then Khalid, who is Dr. Fate, finds the helm of Naboo, and then when he puts it on that first day is how he becomes Dr. Fate. And let's see, but with Naboo continually trying to control his mind, Khalid is trying to decide if he wants to be Dr. Fate anymore or not, and he finally thinks he's totally in control, and that he can use Dr. Fate's power to save Earth 2 at the end of the issue. But from the looks of the last page, it seems Naboo is not down and out as much as Khalid thinks he is. Well, that's it. I hope you weren't all too bored with listening to me ramble to myself. But come back next week. Tyler should be back next week, so you should enjoy yourselves a lot more. Get a hold of me. Tell me what you think about this, or any ideas for the podcast, any recommendations for comic books you need, or any recommendations for us that you think we should be reviewing. You can email me at nightwingpdp@gmail.com, and I'm on Twitter at nightwingpdp. And remember, you can always get a hold of Tyler on Twitter at JTYPatrick. That's at JTYPatrick. And that's it. So, since I'm by myself, this is Phil, your Batman of the podcast. And like I said, we both should be back next week. So until then, stay safe.